Welcome back. I'm Giuseppe Basilio, also known as the FibStalker. Thanks for watching this part 2 of today's weekly video review. I'm a full-time trader, market strategist and mentor at FibStalkerTrading.com. This is the part 2 of today, April 29, 2018. It's 15 past 11 p.m. EST time in Toronto, and this video is part of the FibStalker analysis and trading service. Now, as usual, before you continue, please, I ask you to read and accept, if you're not done that yet, the usual disclaimer. Pause the video here and watch the and read the disclaimer. All right, let's continue here, and we'll start from the New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar. This market has moved lower here, and the daily offered a sequence of measured move here. The first was a 50% short, and the market went into the first and second target, and then it was very technical, and it continued last week, lows to lows. And actually kept pushing price lower. Now, price is on top of the 50% long, and that's the reason why we have been seeing this market slowing down here. It's also the first target, and there are two possibilities. Either this market comes up again and trades the next measure move, or continues, which is the low to the new low here, and then new measure move would come at 91.70. Otherwise, this market just continue into the second target and potentially the 89, the 90 level here, where I would actually remove the short. Okay, Euro Canadian dollar. This market has moved into the previous area last week, and there was also continuation here. There was a low to low that traded to first target, and then the new low is what you see here currently on the screen. So the first 3 days after trading that area, the market actually accelerated. Now it's coming back. You're going to see whether the level is going to be retested, or this market is going to test the 50%, or what's going to happen here. Because I don't trust a lot the US dollar Canadian dollar. I'm staying away at the moment. Australian dollar Canadian dollar is continuing lower, and this market has the 96.70. I think that's where it's pointing. It has been pointing all the time. Okay, and in here, the difficulty in this market is that it's been moving basically almost in a straight line here, and then it came to trade a continuation short here, and again, this level was not easy to identify. In fact, I'm identifying it after the fact here. So but this gives us an idea where profit taking could come, and also if this market retraces the 50% into this move here, then there is a possibility for a continuation low. Unfortunately, this market just dropped lower here without offering any better opportunity to short. Pound versus Canadian dollar, as you know, the sequence here has failed, so this market is coming down, and the level that is likely going to test is the 173.04, which is the lows. Sorry, which is the next. It's the trace from the same anchor here. Okay, they traded, and I'm using the same one. Of course, there is also the ambush here. But this market is very extended, so I'm going to use that one on a larger time frame first, and we'll see what happens when the market gets there. Okay, now if this market retraces, we will need to try to identify where this market can retrace to. Okay, and here there are different views. One of the traces we could make is this one, and this actually would give us a continuation on the 50% in case the retrace is very strong here, this would offer us the 50% short. There are different ways of reading this price, and in this specific case it's not obvious, and we could use same anchor, a new low here, but this would actually, if we use this one, we would have the first target hit here, and that would mean that the next measured move is from lows, highs to lows, and this move has been broken, okay, and first target not hit. So for convenience here, I'm going to use the other reading here, but unfortunately, it's not clean here. So this is the one I'm going to use, and this is from the high to the lows here, and then we're using the highs to lows here because the first target has been hit, just in case we get a very strong retrace in this market. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. Let's look at the price here. And this market has a bearish bias in my view, because although the previous long year has traded, the weekly short has traded too. So this could be a reaction then for a continuation lower, okay? And we need to see where that continuation lower is coming from. And the in here I had traded a 50% short that was not respected on the daily, but as you can see, Friday and today this is being respected, okay? So this could actually push the price lower into the first target, and potentially that continuation lower that I was mentioning. Moving to the Canadian Swiss franc here, when we look at the daily, we can see that there was a sequence here with a notable anchor to a highs here. The 74.86 has traded, bringing price into the first and second target. The next measured move has also traded from highs to highs, brought price into the first target, and then the next measured move broken. So it seems that on the daily this sequence higher has broken. Now this market has resistance above 77.87. We'll see whether if it starts the correction corrects here or needs to retest that 77.84. Pound versus Japanese yen. This market has been kind of technical on the larger time frame with the 146.08 trading here, 146.10, and then we had we have to this is the high that has traded. The 50% short here from highs to lows has not come into play, so there is something else that is at play here, and one of the levels, and there are always several levels that can justify that I'm using here the swing high, but once the 50% here 146 has traded, we were looking for a continuation higher. Of course, with what's happening with pound, with the dollar index and pound, we had the strong selling at the end of last week. The market started from a 50% initially respected, and then it pierced. So this market is not technical, but nevertheless there's a 50% here. There's a first target of 50% here that we could look to understand what's going to happen next. There's also 50% long here, but kind of difficult market currently to look at. The Asian dollar, Japanese yen. It's moving lower here, and the this market has been pushed towards shorts towards lows here, towards the 76.40 twice. The first time at the end of 2016 and the second time here mid last year. And as you can see, the 50% has traded, moved higher, and the market moved back again into this level. So it is possible at some point that this level is going to fail for a continuation lower. So the first thing is that a little bit complicated here, but the first thing is that the 76.40 might be retested here, and that's where this market is going to. Now the sequence here, when we look at this market has accelerated very quickly and has not traded a 50% here. So whenever there is a profit taking event here, you know, we can consider the notable here, but this market could just continue lower. Australian dollar, Japanese yen. This market has tested the 50% here that we see on the monthly here, on the weekly. You know, this 50% is just the first time it's been tested. Okay. Because I traced the fall from the lows to highs after these shorts have traded. So the shorts trading have targets well below, and it's possible that this market could at least see previous lows at the bottom of the range here. Okay, so this market has still a long way to go. The only thing that is stopping this market is actually the as we can see here on the weekly, is that 50% long, but eventually that could be challenged by this market. Okay, challenged by price. So when we look at the recent move lower here, and we trace the 50% on the 4-hour time frame, highs to lows, we can see that never came into play, and due to the extended move, the notable anchor had to be used here from lows to lows, and the pace here was a hint, which is much bigger than the pace that we had before. Okay, so this is the trace in play. It's an extension, so could hit first and second target, helping price lower, as we mentioned, into 81.40. In fact, the second target is 81.68, helping price into that level. Okay, euro, Japanese yen. The euro took a hit here, and but this market has been pretty resilient. Now the on the weekly, this market has traded in recent weeks. Actually, last week has traded 50% short. Okay, so there is a case here for a continuation lower into a test of this level here, which is an extension, a jumping extension that we identified using the high of this gap. I mean, we don't see gaps very often in Forex. When they happen, they are significant events, and they may be used by the smart money to identify anchors. So in here on the 4-hour time frame, if we get continuation high, I'm going to use the extension short here, 132.38. Above that, the weekly, the all the way halfway back from highs to lows could come into play, and 133.20 could also be retested. Euro, Swiss franc. This market has moved pretty in a resilient way here. We had an extension that came into play, you know, as a few weeks back here, that broke price into the first target, and that measure move is still in place. You can see here, as the euro has corrected towards the dollar towards the versus the Swiss franc, there was basically a lateral move here, a corrective move in time, not in price, and that's usually an indication of continuation higher. the larger time frame supports that because we have setups on the larger time frames that support that. And here we can try to use the extension here, but that is not held. So if you want to model the current move here, one way to do that is to use the low after the fact, the low 118.49. If the market gets back into this level, that could be an opportunity for going long the euro Swiss franc that has behaved pretty resiliently here in this market. Euro pound surprised last Friday here, and you know, I was looking at the inner 50% short here that is now trading again, and this could continue lower from here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to change here the drawing, and this market could go back and trade into the actual 50% short. Okay, we'll see whether that happens, because there was a sequence here, and the actual continuation of the sequence is the highs to lows, which is this higher 88.30 level. Okay, so that's the level that we should actually consider. Okay, the Swiss franc, Japanese yen here, the weekly and monthly are showing lower price, 94.33. It's where this market is pointing. Not very technical here. There was an extension short from 13 to 70 to the lows here, 1370 to the lows, and that's what justifies this price here. If that's retested, but it's likely here, then we could see this market moving, you know, continue its move lower. The first stop is going to be 108.78. We reviewed already the US dollar, Singapore dollar, euro, Australian dollar here. You know, this market continues higher on the weakness of the Australian dollar compared to the euro. There is a second target of this inner move here that lines up with that 50% short. So that's what we see on the larger time frame. Euro New Zealand dollar has actually accelerated higher on that weakness of the New Zealand dollar, and the 50% short here that we were looking at has not held, which suggests you know, continued to move higher in this market. And despite the fact here that, you know, you remember that the continuation here has failed, but we are in a range we're not, that has not happened on top, below at 50%. So this market is not held here, but despite that is moving laterally. So I wouldn't give a lot of importance to the levels at this stage on this market. Pound versus Australian dollar. This market, let's have a look on the larger time frame as well. It has traded the 50, the first target of the extension here that we have used to model the 50% here, and we can use the first notable from lows to highs, and that has been hit a few weeks back. So we still have the first target, the second target above, and when we trace the 50% short, you can see that the first target lines up in this market. So it's very similar as the euro Australian dollar here. We have the same situation. The inner moves here, they show you know, extensions, the first and second target, and the next measure move here, initially has held, but here there is failure, so it's a lateral move. This market is not being technical here. Okay, the next market is the pound versus New Zealand dollar, and this market is also proceeding higher. Of course, on Friday we saw that big hit in the pound, and but this market still has this setup and still has the possibility to move higher, and that will depend a lot on how the pound and New Zealand dollar move relative one to another. But as you can see, this move lower here has skewed a little bit the view, and we're going to use the extension short in this market. Australian dollar, Swiss franc, the 50% long here that was tested at the beginning of second quarter of 2017 here has not been tested yet, but that's where eventually very possibly this market could come down to. Okay, so the when we look at the daily, there is a sequence here, and the next measure move, lows to highs sequence here, first and second target. The next measure move has failed. Okay, and the 50% here came into play. So the bulls here are in control, but the bears, when it comes to the participation on the short side here, as you can see here, the bears have also participated on Friday, and actually at the open here the bears are participating and pushing this price lower. So where this price can go, the price can go down into again a retest of 74.20. So the New Zealand dollar, there was a reaction here higher due to the weakness of relative weakness of New Zealand dollar, and this market has pierced the next measure move. So at this point we are looking at, from a technical point of view, we could see a full retrace. We'll also see this level trade. Full retrace would be kind of deep retrace here into 108.88. So we should be testing the 107, 108, 107.90, 108 here first, and then we will see whether the higher level is going to come into play. Euro, Swiss franc, we have reviewed that already, and pound, Swiss franc, and New Zealand Swiss franc are the last two markets to review here, but there are other opportunities in other markets as well. So the pound versus Swiss franc has hit the first target, very much like many of the pairs trading against, many of the currencies trading against the Swiss franc here. The Swiss franc is particularly weak despite weakness and strength in the dollar, and so we could anticipate a continuation higher here. If we get a deeper retrace, this could be in price into 135, 134.99, 135, and that's the level to watch here. Okay, and the last market is New Zealand dollar Swiss franc, and for this we had a much stronger retrace here because of the weakness in the New Zealand dollar. As you can see, that retrace came after this market has pierced the 61% level, but this is a range now, and it is possible for this market to retest the bottom of the range. Okay, and on the daily time frame here, the opportunity is an extension short from lows to lows that has traded on Friday, and and actually the high 70 here was confirmed at the open on Sunday. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the room. If you have any questions, you can post them there. Bye bye now.